All right. Welcome to episode number 70 of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast. I am your host, Triple J. Joining me is my co-host, Dr. Games101.
What's going on, guys? Hello.
And we have a bunch of stuff to get to. We did have a couple articles planned 2 weeks ago that we didn't get to due to time constraints and my computer acting up. So we're going to start with those articles right now.
Oh, yeah.
So you ready to begin?
Yes, indeed.
All right, first one up. Why Xbox Game Pass is so attractive for devs, whether it cannibalizes sales or not. Mike Rose, founder of independent publisher No More Robots, explains why he's such a vocal proponent of Microsoft's subscription service. Xbox Game Pass has quickly taken hold in the industry, representing a strategic shift for Microsoft which skews a key part of the traditional model of console competition, namely directly buying games. The subscription service offers an all-you-can-eat buffet of games from Microsoft itself, as well as third-party developers that Microsoft has partnered with to host its games. But how much does it benefit developers? That question hasn't been answered clearly, since the answer seems to vary by studios and the terms of agreement are not disclosed. Microsoft has not specified exactly how it makes deals, but comments from various developers suggest that it tailors the terms of each deal individually. Xbox head Phil Spencer told The Verge that the deals are all over the place. Microsoft seemed to concede recently that Game Pass can cannibalize game sales, but quickly clarified that it works with publishers to maximize their profits on an individual basis while allowing room for creativity and innovation. You won't find many people in the industry more vocally positive about Game Pass than Mike Rose, founder of independent publisher No More Robots. He's made a point of talking publicly about how Game Pass has helped his own company's games, most recently in a detailed talk at GDC 2023. That talk, titled Why I Chose Game Pass, No More Robots talks about growing their audience for Let's Build a Zoo, went into an unusual level of detail and insight about the multiple benefits of putting Let's Build a Zoo on Game Pass. First and foremost, Rose said, putting a game on Game Pass de-risked the project financially, since financial terms are arranged ahead of time instead of having to wait for the outcome of sales figures. The sizable Game Pass subscriber base also guarantees a big player base at launch, which means a studio can focus on supporting it with post-launch content. And then that ultimately benefits the studio, as many players who are already sampling the game as part of their subscription will purchase DLC. Rose said roughly 4 times as many people bought Let's Build a Zoo DLC as only the base game. Among those who did buy the base game, an unusually high attach rate bought the bundle with the DLC, which he credits consumers wanting to keep access to the DLC they bought after the game rotates out of Game Pass. Finally, he said, Game Pass players provide a great deal of feedback, which can be invaluable for smaller developers. Rose told GameSpot that when the studio launches a game on multiple platforms with a day one launch on Game Pass, the Xbox player base far outweighs all the others. Usually, he said, at least 80% of the players will be on Xbox. Asked about Microsoft's admission of cannibalizing sales, Rose chalks it up to guessing at unknown factors. From my perspective, as someone who has put numerous titles on Game Pass, it's just impossible to actually say, he said. We've definitely had titles that have sold better when entering Game Pass, and we've had titles where after they've gone into Game Pass or left Game Pass, we've seen zero change in the sales they were getting before or after. The big problem with the Game Pass cannibalized sales angle is no developer or publisher has any idea how many copies their game was going to sell on Xbox if it didn't launch into Game Pass. So how exactly could you categorically state that it occurs? Visibility is important, especially as the game's marketplace grows more crowded. According to Statista, Steam adds around 10,000 new game listings per year, or around 200 per week. Being selected as one of only a handful of games on Game Pass in a given month, especially as a new release, makes it that much more likely to stand out. Rose said for a company the size of No More Robots, the most important things Game Pass brings to the table are money and players. We need that money to make sure the developers can see a nice payout for their hard work, and then the huge influx of players we receive for each game means you're guaranteed to have a ton of people talking about your game, which is great for both the short and the long-term success of any title, Rose said. I imagine for a much larger publisher than ours, it's a little more complicated. They have investors to make happy, they have metrics to hit, and so a subscription might not be so simple for them. For us, it simply is the money right? Let's go. And while Rose is a proponent of Game Pass, he does recognize that competition in the subscription space is heating up. PlayStation's new tiers of PlayStation Plus appear to be competing directly with Game Pass, pending day one publishing deals with new releases like The Chia. So while No More Robots has had great success with Game Pass, Rose is also looking at PlayStation. The studio put Descenders on PlayStation Plus, which he says added hundreds of thousands of new players as well. PlayStation Plus is great, just as good as Game Pass for us, he said. We'd definitely like to get more titles on there in the future. So what do you think of this guy's opinion, how Game Pass is how Game Pass is actually beneficial instead of a detriment?
I agree with him. Game Pass, I was subscribed to Game Pass as early as like 2016, 2017. And since then, I see good sales coming on as Game Pass holder. Like if you have Game Pass as altogether, you get like another 10% off the games that are listed online or as featured games. For example, Quantum Break, which we'll discuss later on tonight about the matter. They've been on Game Pass since the beginning of its inception, and I've been playing it on and off ever since. And I also bought Quantum Break for $8, brand new, on Amazon. So it's a blessing. It may not be the best game ever of the decade, but it's a good game to play every now and then for the sake of like movie-like experience, because it is like playing a movie. So and other games like Warhammer and what else? W2K, stuff like that. Depends on which one you're referring to. That is, and it's not bad. Not bad. It's a not bad service to have under your guys as a gamer. You know.
Yeah, and not to mention, especially for the independent developers or the small developers out there, you're getting your game in front of a lot more people than you would if you just put a $60 price tag on it and hope for the best in sales.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like he said, if you're Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption, they may have other responsibilities to shareholders, but when you're an independent developer or a small developer, you can take risk like that. And like I said, while I played Life is Strange True Colors, I thought about buying the DLC that I would have had to shell out money for, but I heard bad things about it, so I didn't. But, it basically varies by studio, and the more popular your game is, the more money you're going to get, guaranteed to have your game on Game Pass. So it's not like they're putting their games on there. Developers are putting their games on there for free. They get offered a price, and if they like the price, it goes up on the service.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's proceeds no matter too. We put like Game Pass as well as a developer or a group of developers making that game and all. So it's kind of a long-term benefit for the company that made these games put up on the Game Pass. So games like Ninja Turtles and what's the other game? Prince of Persia collection, I think it was. No, that's on sale. Excuse me, it's on sale as of like 2 days ago. But games like that, it's like you get benefits as not only a gold member or also as a Game Pass holder. So it brings those two together. That's an awesome combination for savings and sales. So more power to the gamer,
Right.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a positive about Game Pass especially if you're a small time developer, or independent developer.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next, Microsoft just overcame a major hurdle blocking the Activision deal. UK regulators gave the Xbox manufacturer a tentative green light. Microsoft's $69 billion deal to buy Activision Blizzard inched closer in a big way on Friday. This was 2 weeks ago. UK regulators announced a provisional finding that the acquisition wouldn't harm competition, despite previously suggesting the Xbox maker might need to spin off the Call of Duty business to get the sale approved. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority, which was initially skeptical of Microsoft's promises to keep the military shooter available on PlayStation consoles for many years to come, arguing it could have financial incentive to pull the blockbuster series from the platform in the future. The CMA now says that after receiving more detailed information about Call of Duty player spending, it's clear that making the series exclusive to Xbox would lose Microsoft a ton of money. Finally, they realized it. The CMA Inquiry Group has updated its provisional findings and reached a provisional conclusion that overall the transaction will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in relation to console gaming in the UK. They wrote in a press release. The CMA continued. While the CMA's original analysis indicated that this strategy would be profitable under most scenarios, new data, which provides better insight into the actual purchasing behavior of Call of Duty gamers, indicates that this strategy would be significantly loss-making under any plausible scenario. On this basis, the updated analysis now shows that it would not be commercially beneficial to Microsoft to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox following the deal. That Microsoft will instead have the incentive to continue to make the game available on PlayStation. The CMA is still reviewing Game Pass. The regulatory agency is still investigating the cloud gaming side of the deal, with its final verdict decision still not due out until the 26th of April. Call of Duty seemed to be the biggest sticking point in the CMA's skepticism of the deal, however, and Microsoft seems to have now tentatively assuaged those fears. It's also been busy shoring up its defense on the cloud gaming front by striking deals with several smaller competitors, and guarantee its first-party games will be available on other services if the deal goes through. One big question that remains is what a final deal between Microsoft and Sony will look like. An Activision spokesperson had previously claimed that Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan was unwilling to negotiate, stating his only objective was to permanently kill the acquisition. As that outcome becomes increasingly unlikely, the PS5 manufacturer will seemingly have no alternative but to hammer out the details of Microsoft's 10-year Call of Duty proposal. Determining the availability of Activision Blizzard games like Diablo 4 and upcoming Black Ops sequel on Game Pass compared to PlayStation Plus will be a key part of that. In its latest argument to the CMA, pushing back on Sony's concerns, Microsoft went so far as to suggest that 10 years would be plenty of time for it to go make its own Call of Duty competitor if it was so concerned about losing it. In the meantime, Microsoft still needs to get approval from European regulators and deal with an antitrust lawsuit by the Federal Trade Commission. But investors seem more hyped for the deal than they've ever been. Activision Blizzard's stock price shot up to $85, a share following the CMA's latest announcement, more than at any point since the acquisition was announced. It's the most the company has been worth since it was sued for alleged widespread sexual harassment and discrimination. So, what do you think of the UK finally coming around, realizing that making Call of Duty exclusive would be a money loser?
And we've been talking about this for months on end now about this acquisition, and at first we were, at least I was wrong that the fact that it's going to not destroy Call of Duty sales, but in the long term, though, it will affect Xbox altogether and be exclusive only to their console, the Call of Duty games, over time, that is. So, because Call of Duty was always a multi-platform game since the 2003-2004, since the creation of the first Call of Duty game. And it's a tradition you break it after 20 years now, and it's like, that's like not a good idea. And it's... But
they said, if Microsoft was to do that, that would not be beneficial because, like I said, Microsoft wants to get open Call of Duty so it can be bought from any avenue. It can be bought from any developer. It can be bought from Steam. It can be bought on Nvidia. It can be bought on this, that, and the other thing. But if Microsoft owns it, they're getting at least a cut of every game, regardless what console it's sold for.
Pretty much proceed to the matter. Yeah, it's a good move on Microsoft's part, and I hope they'll make me prosperous more than ever after the acquisition is over. Looks like it's over with its final stages for the last few days. So hopefully by the end of this month we'll see some results, and by hopefully next year we'll see the sales of the next Call of Duty game coming out, not this year per se, but next year I think it was, right? So, or was it this past year? Like back in 2022, that was the Modern Warfare 2022. So by
Yeah.
2024, we'll see some of beginnings of the acquisition being in full effect. So,
Right. Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, they still got the FTC and here in America. They still got Europe. So it's not fully greenlit yet. But one of the biggest detractors is finally has finally decided to approve at least temporarily approve the acquisition. They said as far as streaming it on like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, that still has to be decided. But for now, they're temporarily approving the merger.
of course. Oh yeah.
Ready to move on, or anything else to say, or ready to move on?
Yeah, ready to move on.
All right, next.
This will be a good one.
Yep. Hold on. Okay. Next. Jun Kazama purges evil in Tekken 8 gameplay trailer. New character trailer for Tekken 8 showcases the action of the returning Jun Kazama. Jin's long-lost mother is making her first playable appearance in a mainline entry since Tekken 2. And based on a new gameplay trailer, she hasn't lost a step. A gameplay trailer shows off Jun's expert use of Kazama-style martial arts to claws opponents of their evils. That translates to beating the snot out of them, if that wasn't obvious. We also see a brief reunion between Jun and her former lover, Kazuya, and it goes about as well as you would expect from a mother meeting the father and repeat attempted killer of their son. For those keeping count, here's the list of confirmed fighters thus far. Kazuya Mishima, Jack 8, Jin Kazama, King, Lars Alexanderson, Marshall Law, Nina Williams, and Paul Phoenix. Tekken 8 still doesn't have a release date, but it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. So, how do you feel about that confirmed roster so far?
Yeah, I have me some of that Jun. Yeah, she's a good player back in Tekken 2. So that was the only time she was in any of the Tekken games in Tekken 2 back in the 1990s. And she's a good fighter, and you know what to do with her. And I hope they'll greatly improve her move sets and combos. Even her, because obviously the first Tekken 2 games were not really combo partially worthy in a sense, because you have to. It was kind of sketchy a little bit back in the day. But Tekken 3 and after they improved the combo system, so it's. I hope Jun will be one of the best fighters to choose from in Tekken 8, and I'm sure she'll make her look more sexy than ever, in my perspective. Even though she's up in age, because she's like gotta be in her 50s.
I was about to say that.
Because Nina Williams, she's in her 40s, late 40s in Tekken 7, so and not Tekken 4. So it's like they make these, so basically these are these next hot mamas, we'll call them like that. So
well,
like that.
Does the fact that the game is only coming out on next gen, or I guess I could say current gen, affect you? I mean, it might come out on Game Pass and it might be playable over the cloud for people like us who just have the base Xbox One. But does that affect you in any way, or?
Yeah, it's all about money now for me to buy these systems, especially for the current gen systems like the Xbox Series and the PS5. So it's eventually I will try to get a copy of these systems. At least with PlayStation 5. I don't know when though. It all depends on what if I get money from other means. Because I might start working on this Monday for distributing flights for GameStop and all. So that's an opportunity I can start doing, save my money for that matter. So it's all about timing. That's all. It's on. There's a big sale going on with PS5. And also it'll be approved for the invitation to buy these systems as well, between PS5 and Xbox Series. Which I don't know why they keep doing that after all these years now. Doesn't make any sense. I understand they want to try to improve sales or make sure they know how demanding the product is and all. but they be very stingy and very exact in the matter. That's how sales works. You provide as much product as possible. You see the results of your first quarter or your first year of sales, and then take it from there. But the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, they're just being always by invitation only. Like that's like some royalty bullshit right there, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's not a big deal to me that Tekken 8 is going to be next gen. Again, ever since I've really stopped being a fan after Tekken 4 and Tekken Tag Tournament 2. That was the last time I was really a big Tekken fan.
right.
5 I hated, 6 I hated. I didn't even try 7. So for me,
Seven has the rage art system, so you might like that one.
well, I had my own problems with 5 and 6. So it it depends. I mean, it's Tekken 8. It's not a big loss in my opinion if I can't play it.
Yeah.
But like we said, no, we don't know the release date. We don't even know the full list of fighters. The list I read was just what's confirmed so far.
Right.
Ready to move on?
I just want to say one more thing though, that Tekken 8 is since 1994 to 85, so it's basically it's 30-year anniversary. So if they have to push the date back for sake of like anniversary sales or anniversary events, this time's the best time to push the date back, and also to show more hype for the game as well for Tekken 8, because we just played Tekken 7 like 6 years ago, and usually every game comes out every 2 to 5 years. So, and Tekken 7 was supposed to be a nice release of the game back in 2017. And he said that people download DLCs and others extras and updates. So it's kind of like, people still playing Tekken 7 for the sake of like gaining stats and all, like myself. So hopefully they'll push the name after Tekken 8 just for the sake of anniversary hype.
Right.
So.
All right. Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next. Dead Island 2 is coming to Saints Row in new crossover. Volition has an ambitious plan to revive Saints Row again in 2023. Saints Row, last year's reboot of the cult classic crime sandbox series, now has a content roadmap planned out after spending several months under the radar. Volition's reboot will be expanding with 3 major releases for expansion pass holders throughout the year, which will include two free new districts to explore, 3 more quality of life updates, and a Dead Island 2 inspired cosmetic pack for all players. For the Dead Island 2 crossover, players will be able to dress up with items inspired by Jacob and Amy, 2 of the characters who appear in the upcoming Zombie Apocalypse game. A new weapon, emote, and decorations for the Saints headquarters will also be available in this free download, which will be available starting April 11th. And that's in 3 days from now. Volition said that its biggest free update to date will launch in May and will revamp the game with numerous quality of life changes that range from overhauled combat to a selfie mode, the new Sunshine Springs district, and more improvements. Expansion pass holders will get 3 new story missions set in Sunshine Springs, and the Heist and the Hazardous, which involves the Saints looking for payback against an actor who double-crossed them. Finally, August sees the release of a 3rd expansion, which will add yet another district and more quality of life updates to the game for free. More details on this DLC will be revealed at a later date. After the Saints Row reboot garnered a mixed reaction from fans, Volition was merged with Borderlands studio Gearbox in November 2022. Embracer Group, who owns both Volition and Gearbox, announced that the Saints Row developer would be integrated into Gearbox as part of a move to create future success at the studio. For as much as Saints Row differentiates itself from the bombast of its past few entries, it still closely resembles a game from the same era, leading to an experience that often feels stale and dated, Richard Wakeling wrote in GameSpot's Saints Row review. So what do you think about this plan to put Dead Island items and characters in Saints Row as a way to reboot it?
We're talking about the Saints Row reboot, right, or a separate game altogether?
Basically another reboot for Saints Row.
And when is coming out exactly? Do they all know yet?
The updates are coming out later this year. It's coming. Let's see. The Dead Island 2 characters will be coming in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Will be available in 3 days. Quality of life changes, overhauled combat, another district, and more improvements will come out in May. And then they got a third story, which will add another district and more updates.
And all just learned about the reboot or another reboot of the Saints Row.
Basically, they're trying to make the reboot. They're basically trying to make the reboot a success by adding more stuff to it for people who may have bought like the season pass.
Well, I mean, it helps maybe for a temporarily, but not for the full long term. I'm like not speechless at the same time. I'm just like, I don't see the connection with Dead Island and Saints Row really.
Like they said, in 3 days, 2 characters from Dead Island 2 will be in Saints Row.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see the connection, but it's not surprising. It's definitely not exciting for me. I will admit that. So maybe if I give it a chance, I might see something out of it. But other than that, it's just like another, like, let's throw some more shit at the wall and see if it sticks, type of moment.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they should investigate why Saints Row the reboot sucked to begin with, instead of just adding to it.
I saw Angry Joe's review of Saints Row reboot of 2022, and I see the gameplay of it. I'm like, damn, this is fucked up. It's like, who wants to still play that game for the first time I'm playing it? It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention, who's going to spend $60 on Saints Row when you could take that money and probably get every Saints Row game from the past with money left over and have an infinitely better time?
Especially if you have money for the DLC, whatever it came out for the Saints Row 3 and 4 and Get Out of Hell and such. I mean, I already got Saints Row 2, Saints Row 3 for the Games of Gold, Saints Row Get Out of Hell, and Saints Row 4. So it's kind of like, I got these 4 Saints Row games. I'm like, I already played those games. Then there's a reboot of all places, of all games of Saints Row. So
I mean, I beat Saints Row the 3rd and 4th, and I beat Saints Row 4 just the base games. I basically sold Saints Row 4 back before like the DLC even came out, because at that time I was like, beat the game as fast as I can. I'll get as much as I can back from GameStop. I have Saints Row Get Out of Hell digitally. I still have 1 and 2 physically, and I have 2 digitally. So it's kind of like, why would I want to play this bare bones, poor attempt at a reboot?
Yeah. And it's for kids really too.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like a lot of the driving. You're driving like in desolate areas that have nothing to them.
And every time when you drive, this is a pattern I see in some of the gameplay videos. Every time when you drive the vehicle, it makes this over a loopy sound. It's like, I'm like, what? That's how they drive. You drive a car. It's supposed to be. No, sir. I'm like, what? Like, what are they doing? The cars. It's so cheesy too. It looks like it cut back a lot of production in that game just to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks or whatever. That's all it is. I'm not interested in that like that.
It's basically like if Saints Row was American Movie Channel's The Walking Dead. This new Saints Row was like Nickelodeon making their version of The Walking Dead.
Nickelodeon.
Which, oh my god, that channel, that I don't even know. I'd love to see Nickelodeon's financials, because I think they're dying.
Yeah, the Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, they're not doing so well between them. I mean, they were in competition for how many years and decades, but
but dude, they got like 3. Hold on. Now what? Yes? Fine. I'll be back in a minute or two.
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll poke more fun at Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah. But yeah, guys, Deadline 2 is something alright with this crossover. So, in the meantime, we'll play some music on my end of the stream. Be aware of the back in a couple minutes. All right, guys. I'll see you around.
Hello there, my enemy. Welcome to my punching spree. This is where I lay waste and you'll go home bleeding. Didn't have to be this way. Should have stayed out of the fray. Now you're heading for a beating. Did another warn you? Now she's gonna mark you. Be damned if you'll end this day. You're a fake mess. 'Cause I'm relentless. I gotta tell you I'm a fire today.
All right, I'm back.
Well, that was quick. Okay.
All right, but anyway, back to what I was saying about Nickelodeon. I checked one time. It was a Saturday. It was definitely like 3-4 weeks ago. I went through like a whole 24-hour span on Nickelodeon, checking the cable guide to see what was on Nickelodeon.
Right.
The only show, I kid you not, the only show during Nickelodeon cartoon hours was SpongeBob SquarePants. Then they got like Seinfeld for a few hours at night.
Nick at Night.
Yeah, for a few hours, and then they got one other show. It might have been Mike and Molly. It might have been something else. And that's it. They had, over the course of 24 hours, they were showing 3 different programs. I don't know. So, did Nickelodeon run out of money and couldn't get the license to show more programs on their channel? I mean, when you have to have the whole day full of nothing but SpongeBob, that's pretty bad.
It's been like this for years, since like 2018, 2019.
I didn't know it was this bad.
Yeah, they've been playing SpongeBob for years now, all throughout the entire day. Like Teen Titans go on Cartoon Network like that, something sort of like that. So that's their competition, and that's their bread and butter for, go up against Nickelodeon is Teen Titans on Cartoon Network.
But I'm saying, remember when we grew up with Nickelodeon in the 90s, they had Rugrats, they had Doug, they had Rocko's Modern Life, they had Ren and Stimpy, they had
Yep.
as we got older, they had Rocket Power, they had Kablam, they had all these different kinds of shows, and then you had Nick at Night, which had the sitcoms, basically. Even in the 90s, they had older shows for the older folks. If you were too old for the cartoons, maybe you like Keenan and Kel. Maybe you like Clarissa Explains It All. You liked, maybe you like those old.
The Secret World of Alex Max.
Yes, The Strange World of Alex Mack. Thank you. I forgot about that one.
Mm-hmm.
All that. They had all these shows, and now they're down to 3 throughout the course of a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a fall from grace.
Yeah, it's all about saving money and about how much cheap product you put out there for the long term, rather than supposed to be the other way around, where you're supposed to put out good content for the long term. So,
yeah. So I'm just wondering if Nickelodeon or whoever owns Nickelodeon, if that's not the parent company, is hemorrhaging money. And I'm saying, and I'm even thinking, if you don't have the money for new shows. You had shows that were Nickelodeon exclusive. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Clarissa Explains It All. Strange World of Alex. Bring those shows back if you got nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, even though Disney owns Doug, Nickelodeon owns the rights to the episodes that aired on Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah.
So they could always just put those reruns back on. But yeah, But anyway, Dead Island... back to the Dead Island 2 and Saints Row. It just seems like you said, they're trying to, they think the game's on life support. They're doing the jump start to the heart, trying to get a pulse again.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Anything else to say, or ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
All right. Next. All right, next. Japan's competition regulator approves Microsoft Activision's Blizzard deal. Another domino falls. The Japan Fair Trade Commission has approved Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard after its review concluded that the deal was unlikely to result in substantially restraining competition. The Japan Fair Trade Commission reviewed the transaction and reached the conclusion that the transaction is unlikely to result in substantially restraining competition in any particular field of trade, read a post on the regulatory body's website reported by VGC. The review found that the $69 billion merger fell under the safe harbor criteria for vertical business integrations laid out in Japan's Anti-Monopoly Act, and that accordingly the JFTC has notified the parties that the JFTC will not issue a cease and desist order. The JFT's decision not to challenge the merger will come as welcome news to Microsoft as it campaigns to convince regulators in holdout countries, including the United States Federal Trade Commission, that the deal will not harm competition or increase costs for consumers. Last week, the UK's Competition and Market Authority, CMA, softened its stance on the merger. However, a final verdict from the CMA, which is viewed as one of the greatest potential impediments to the deal's completion, isn't due until the end of April. Having considered the additional evidence provided, we have now provisionally concluded that the merger will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in console gaming services because the cost to Microsoft of withholding Call of Duty from PlayStation will outweigh any gains from taking such action, explained Martin Coleman, chair of the CMA's independent panel counseling on the acquisition. The CMA is still cautious of the deal's impact on the cloud gaming market, however, and is currently investigating its potential impact. So, the last few months have seen Microsoft embark on a charm offensive in which the company has taken out full-page adverts in UK newspapers and launched a bespoke website designed to extol the virtues of the merger. So, what do you think of this deal getting greenlit in Japan?
Well, Japan is the center of one of the latest technological devices ever, from Sony to Panasonic, even Toshiba. So these companies have been around for decades on end and selling good electronic products, and also, of course, when they accept the acquisition of rights of Activision deal, somehow it's in a good light. Personally, myself, I thank Japan for giving their all in providing good gaming quality content, and it's a blessing for them to make PS2 and PS3s and stuff like that. It's with Sony and all, I don't know what to say. Yes, PS3 has moments of bad moments, but still, I mean, I want to play Metal Gear Solid 4 so badly at one point, and I can still play right now if I want to, thanks to someone doing a PS3 to me and all. So, but other than that, back on point with this acquisition, because obviously different parts of the world have different regulations, different laws, different stances in the business practices. So it's Microsoft, even though they cut back on how many thousand workers so far, they still have enough money to pay for this acquisition. So I guess they try to find out ways to make more money than ever, outbeat the competition to some degree. Microsoft.
And like this, not to cut you off, but like Microsoft said, the whole point of this merger was to get their foot in the mobile market.
Yeah. Of course. So. Yeah. Yeah.
So Japan's all right with it so far. The UK seems all right with it. Slowly but surely, this merger looks like it's coming closer and closer to happening.
Oh yeah.
And Japan. Keep in mind, video games. It's kind of like in America. I think the people in Japan have it better than we do here because, it was in Japan that they released the Nintendo, or as they called it over there, the Famicom, and then they wanted to release it here, even though the video game crash was just 2 or 3 years old.
Of course.
But Nintendo said, but Japan was like, no, we want to release this, and we're going to do it in New York City, the biggest city in the United States,
if not the world.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, they wanted to get the Nintendo in the United States, but they said we're going to launch it in that New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, as a test run.
Oh yeah, it's a good move on their part too because by the 1990s they had how much is billions in sales? Oh, not
Right.
billions upon billions, but multi-million-dollar sales. Because obviously, you got to adjust for inflation in today's world, of course. Because Super Nintendo came out back when 1986, by 1990,
Came out like 85,
yeah.
but the video game crash happened like in 83. So
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
but
it's
if it hadn't been for Japan, so adamant getting the Nintendo over here, we would have never gotten it in America.
oh, yeah.
And who knows if the video game crash would have ever went away in America.
Oh yes, indeed.
So that's a good thing. And yeah, look, one more detractor has given the green light, so to speak.
Yeah, I wish I could visit Japan and see how well because obviously I hear that now that their electronic industry is all that good stuff still, but also their copyright is good too, in association with the electronics. So they're lax on the laws, I hear, or that it's any grab, anything goes type of grab deal, whatever, the first come first serve. Because here in the United States, it's pro corporation here in the United States with the copyrights is all. But I hear in Japan now, it's more like pro consumer, pro individual, pro entrepreneurship in the copyright industry. If I'm correct in the matter. So you never know, right? So
Right. Yeah. So I mean, hey, another step to having this merger happen.
mm-hmm. Indeed.
What? Ready to move on?
Yes, I am. I'm ready.
All right. Next, PlayStation Plus free games for April 2023 revealed. Next month's lineup of free games for PlayStation Plus subscribers includes Sackboy: A Big Adventure. PlayStation has announced the next batch of free games for PlayStation Plus subscribers. April's PlayStation Plus lineup will feature Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Meet Your Maker, and Tales of Iron. One of those games, Meet Your Maker, isn't a surprise as it was already officially revealed as launch day freebie earlier this month. All three games will be available to claim starting April 4th. It's rare that this happens, but each of the games has a PS5 and PS4 version that will be up for grabs. Sackboy: A Big Adventure is the big one here. A spin-off of the Little Big Planet series, Sackboy launched alongside the PS5 in 2020, though it also released for PS4 too. Regardless of which PlayStation platform you game on, you should absolutely play Sackboy. It's essentially Little Big Planet's take on Super Mario 3D World. Great platforming mechanics, stellar level design, and incredible soundtrack make Sackboy a smile-inducing adventure. If you're looking for a game to play with your kids, this is ideal for couch co-op for up to 4 players. Okay, name aside. For the masochists out there, Oddbug Studio Tales of Iron is worth checking out. This side-scrolling RPG with storybook graphics features challenging melee combat that will test your fortitude. You play as a rat named Redkey, who leads the charge to save the kingdom from evil frogs. Meet Your Maker is a brand new online multiplayer game that launches for consoles and PC on April 4th. PlayStation Plus subscribers won't have to spend a dime to start playing, though. It's described as a building and raiding game that tasks you with creating and plundering labyrinth fortresses filled with perilous traps and guards. You can build your own outpost and then invite your friends to try to make it to the end of your dastardly maze. You can build and raid outposts solo or alongside a buddy. If you haven't already, make sure to claim the PlayStation Plus free games lineup for March 2023 before April 4th. This month's lineup was also quite impressive with Battlefield 2042, Minecraft Dungeons, and Code Vein. So, even though we don't have PlayStation Plus, what do you think of Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Meet Your Maker, and Tales of Iron?
Well, Meet Your Maker, that's a shooter game, right?
Let me pull up the article again. Meet Your Maker. It's it's a building and raiding game where you create your own fortress with traps and stuff.
I see. So it's kind of like saying like Tropico or something like that. You know?
Yeah, except if you were building death traps instead of island uh, instead of an island,
Right, right.
and you can also raid other people's islands
I
or
see.
fortresses in Meet Your Maker.
I see. Well, they don't stand out as much. All like with the Speed of Baker, of course, does stand out to me, but not as much as I thought it would be. I thought it would be like a shooter game or a strategy game of sorts, but I was wrong in a sense. So, like I said, it sounds interesting at first to have these games in their library, but it's PlayStation. They're trying to make these both the cheap games and AAA games to be like together in the same library. So it's kind of like whatever to me. Um, yeah, no, hey, I don't mind it. I'll try them out.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, Meet Your Maker sounds interesting. We did talk about that, I think, last 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sackboy: A Big Adventure. It's they said that's like Little Big Planet meets Super Mario 3D World. Um, so that's fun. I could imagine, it's basically almost a Super Mario Maker.
Yeah.
Because Little Big Planet, you could create your own levels, or at least I think in the sequel you could.
Right.
Um, yeah. So and Tales of Iron, I think, was the other one. Um, it's an RPG, storybook graphics, challenging melee combat. Um, well, that's the cutesy game because you play a rat trying to and evil frogs have taken over the kingdom, and you're trying to defeat them.
Right.
So, anything else to say, or ready to move on?
That's all I got to say for this topic.
All right. Next, uh, Xbox Games with Gold free games for April 2023 revealed. Outer Space Couch Edition and Peaky Blinders Mastermind headline Games with Gold in April. The Xbox Games with Gold lineup for April has been officially announced by Microsoft, and you can look forward to Outer Space Couch Edition and Peaky Blinders Mastermind on Xbox Series and Xbox One. Outer Space Couch Edition, which will be available the whole month of April, is set in outer space. As the captain of a cozy spaceship house, you'll need to manage your resources while strategically dealing with a deadly alien infestation. The goal is to create a sustainable environment out in the cold and dark vacuum of space, and if you're feeling social, you'll be able to play with friends as you explore the cosmos. Peaky Blinders Mastermind is next, and is based on a hit TV series that stars former Batman villain Cillian Murphy as Tommy Shelby, Birmingham's ruthless crime boss. You'll be able to control 6 key members of the Shelby family, each with different strengths and weaknesses, as you uncover a plot to put the Shelbys out of business. Set before the events of the first season of the show, Peaky Blinders Mastermind will be available from April 16th to May 15th. Last month's Games with Gold are still available, although you only have a few days left to grab Trooper and Sunstrike for a complete collection. On the Xbox Game Pass side, March saw Guilty Gear Strive, Valheim, and several other games added to the collection, including the brand new release MLB The Show 2023. So, Xbox gamers are getting Outer Space Couch Edition and Peaky Blinders Mastermind. All I have to say in response to this is,
Yeah. if they added Xbox 360 games like that, I would say Pikmin or Plants vs Zombies again, I wouldn't be able to be love to have this month's games with gold be like that, something of that sort.
yeah, it's just like it's just like what games can we put on Games with Gold for the cheapest?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, for what they didn't account for when they took out the Xbox 360 games is the 360 games and they could have put games that are on Game Pass too. I never saw Alan Wake's American Nightmare on Game Pass. I never saw Alan Wake. I never saw Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy. All those games that Mafia 2 was on this. I don't know why they didn't put Mafia 1 on there. I got Mafia 2 through Games with Gold. It's just like whenever the Xbox One side had nothing of interest, the Xbox 360 at least had something.
Or
now,
Xbox Original.
Yeah, or Xbox Original. And now that I understand they ran out of games, but I'd rather them bring back those reruns. I'd rather them bring back those games, especially for the people who didn't have Games with Gold for the first year or two it was out.
Mm-hmm.
That was my problem, when they were offering Hydro Thunder Hurricane again for the second time. It's like, okay, I was already a member by the time that was released, that was available the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you putting games that were, I didn't get my Xbox One until Christmas 2015. Why can't you put games, why can't you, if you're offering games again, why can't you offer games that were available the first or second year of Games with Gold? Even when I had a 360, I really didn't capitalize on it unless it was a game I really wanted, and that was kind of a bad move on my part. I regret that now.
Oh yeah.
People could be making up for that if they were still offering 360 games. But, these games, take them or leave them.
Mm.
How do you feel?
Yeah, Xbox Games with Gold is not as it used to be great like it once was over 3-4 years ago, because back then, right before Xbox One Series, Xbox Series XS came out, they were giving out good Xbox Games with Gold games. From Halo at one point many years ago to now, it's like
Mafia 2, Assassin's Creed Trilogy, Tropico 4 and 5.
Assassin's Creed Russia, China, and I believe some other country as well.
Actually, I hated that one. That was Russia, China, and India, I think.
Yeah, Russia. I played China for the first time. It wasn't so bad.
It just was boring to me. It felt like you were inside a simulation, and it didn't feel like you were in a actual country like the other Assassin's Creed games. Mm-hmm. But for crying out loud, they gave us Assassin's Creed Syndicate for Games with Gold.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I still have that copy on my account. I always want to download and play it myself, but now I got a new storage unit, so I'm gonna download that sometime tonight or tomorrow, and that's just remind me about the matter. So, the Syndicate I heard wasn't so bad. They choose transgender characters, so I was like, whatever.
There is no I told you the transgender character is someone the main characters meet.
Okay.
You play as a brother and sister combination.
So why would they make a big deal about that shit back 3 years ago? Then
I don't know. I think people were just running with something that they knew nothing about. I could probably bring it up again if I look for the article. But there is this old guy with white hair that the main characters meet, and Evie just looks at Jacob like, "Do you believe this guy?" When they come across the old guy who was a transgender character.
Okay.
But whoever said that you play as a transgender character, no.
All right.
No. That's that you play as a brother and sister team, because the sister even gets. I probably shouldn't spoil this, but it's a small spoiler. At the end of the game, the sister even gets in a relationship with someone who kind of held back on missions, who stayed in their train, which was their home base.
Right.
Yeah, so, but Syndicate, I think, was Rogue free? Assassin's Creed Rogue?
Yeah, it was. Games of Gold.
Okay, so I think I already owned it at the time. But yeah, so, they had so many games that they could have offered. I know Dead Rising 1, the first one was free Game with Gold.
Yep.
I still play that now, still trying to get the good ending. So, yeah, they had all... but these were the games that people cared about. Oh, yeah. If I still have this, I closed out the article, but not Peak Blind, Mastermind, and I'd rather play Sackboy than what Xbox is offering.
Sackboy.
That's the Little Big Planet meets Super Mario 3D World, by the way.
Right.
So, ready to move on? Or?
I'm ready, yes.
All right. Next. E3 2023 has been canceled. E3 2023 has been canceled, IGN reports. The news comes after major publishers pulled out of the event in recent weeks. IGN reported on Tuesday that major publishers had either declined to attend or had little to no idea if the event would even take place due to an alleged lack of communication with organizer ReedPop and the ESA. Today, IGN received an email sent within the ESA explaining that the show simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. The official E3 Twitter account has now publicly confirmed the cancellation in a brief statement posted below. ReedPop and the Entertainment Software Association have announced that both the digital and physical events for E3 2023 are canceled. However, IGN received a press release stating that ReedPop and the ESA will continue to work together on future E3 events. Whether that means they will try again next year or come up with something completely new under the E3 branding remains to be seen. Though the news is disheartening for fans of the annual event, the writing for its demise has been on the wall for some time. It had been reported that the three console makers, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, were pulling out, with Nintendo formally declining. Ubisoft dropped out in favor of holding its own live event. Sega and Tencent followed suit soon after. E3 was scheduled to take place at the Los Angeles Convention Center from June 13th to June 16th. It would have been the first in-person edition since 2019 and had been set up for media and fans to attend. Though the show had been on decline prior to 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic proved to be a devastating blow. The 2020 show was canceled, the 2021 version was an online-only event, and the 2022 event was shut down again. In an age where developers, publishers can deliver big announcements using pre-recorded videos or live streams without paying the ESA a ton of money for floor space and spending months preparing playable demos, it's become increasingly challenging for E3 to justify its existence in its traditional state. It'll be interesting to see what and if ReedPop and the ESA can come up with, but for now, E3 will continue to lay dormant with an uncertain future. Before I go on, I actually wrote about, I actually put a blog entry on my website about this. Is it okay with you, Dr. Games, if I read the blog, that post that I wrote?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
And it also gives me a chance to promote my website. Let's see, jimmysdeals.com, blog. All right. Okay, this is, I wrote this March 27, 2023, The Downfall of E3. I wrote this after I found out Ubisoft was pulling out. The reason Ubisoft was a big news item is that they had previously committed to being at E3.
Right.
So, but then they pulled out, and then Sega and Tencent did a day or two later. This is why I wrote, since the mid-1990s, there was one gaming event that stood out above the rest. If you wanted to know what was planned within the next 12 months for a developer or console, the event you had to pay attention to was E3. This is where the biggest gaming announcements of the year were made. Around 2013 was when developers like Nintendo and Electronic Arts decided to stop using E3 as a showcase to announce projects that were being worked on. While many other developers were still using E3 as a showcase, the worldwide pandemic in 2020 would accelerate the downfall of E3. Due to lockdowns all over the United States in 2020, there was no E3 showcase. The next year there was an E3 event, but no one was allowed to show up, and the whole show was virtual. When 2022 came around, the decision was made to cancel E3 entirely. With E3 set to return to normal in 2023, the news came out that Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony were all skipping E3. People in charge of organizing E3 said there was no reason to worry because many developers were still going to show up, and people thought this might be the year E3 returns to normal. However, recently Ubisoft has decided to skip E3 this year. There is a reason why developers don't see E3 anymore as an event they must attend to showcase their future projects. Many developers, including Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, hold their virtual events when they have projects they want showcased to the public. When developers can hold their virtual events anytime they want, it took away the importance of E3 that used to have. Holding these virtual events was never tried until the pandemic made virtual events the only way to get news of projects out to video game fans. At the time of this writing, E3 2023 is still 2.5 months away, which means more developers may decide to not participate in E3. How much longer does E3 have before too many developers decide E3 is unnecessary? You want to see this blog post for yourself? My website is Jimmy's, JIMMYS, deals.com. Go to the blog. It's the bottom post on the blog because I have another blog post up there. So what do you think of them basically pulling the plug on E3, at least this year?
It doesn't surprise me at all, my friend, and glad that you mentioned your blog website on your Jimmy's Games website. So I'll help you out with promote your website as well. In the meantime, the E3 has been iffy for at least almost 5 years now, and thanks to the rise of the internet for the last 20 years, it created this instantaneous access to what you want to see happen for the next several months ahead of time. E3 at one point was the gatekeepers of that content, or the gatekeepers of that quality of content. There was, because before the internet was manifested into this mainstream we see right now, not many people have access to see instant access to a lot of information. Back in the day, TV was the biggest gospel of all time. So where's to go to if you wanted to know the latest thing was either watch the TV. It's a blessing and a curse. You know, we were programmed since birth to look at the TV, but for the last 5 or 10 years now it's like anyone can make their own little program what they want to see here. E3, they lost those gatekeeper rights, and it's the downfall of them. Because now anyone can make it in this world if they really want to, but with hard workmanship and an internet connection and the word of mouth. So E3 is like this. I've always heard of E3 when I was a kid. Not kid, but I was like in the late teens, early 20s. I heard that E3 went off in the 1990s. So that was when the time of like the internet just started to broadcast itself to the public. So it's the right time for them to start it. But after a certain while, they create this pinnacle of like it's either E3 to watch E3 or to go online to do your own research. And people start to do their own research to find stuff that's to listen to E3 all the time. So, yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, E3 might be good, like other gaming conventions, for like resellers who sell at those conventions. I'd like to do that but moving my stuff all the way to the other side of the country and then getting over there myself would probably be a nightmare. But other than that, I mean, like you said, when it comes to gaming news, there's no shortage of it out there of where you can get your gaming news from. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get the articles we get from like I look through 4 different sources. So it's and that's just a fraction of what's out there.
Yeah.
So and then you got it's kind of like what happened with G4 and specifically XPlay. XPlay was great for its time, but when YouTube got big, and the gaming section of YouTube was flooded and oversaturated, a lot of those people were doing what XPlay was doing or better. Mm-hmm. And that's why G4 trying to bring it back online failed, among other things.
Yeah, among don't watch it if you're a gamer type of moment,
That and how woke they were trying to make the new cast. Although it's kind of funny when Frosty the Woman decided to do that rant. You see the black guys on the couch like, whoa, we had no idea this was happening.
Yeah.
It's like I've watched that reaction, because a few different people that talk about video games talked about that rant, and it's just like the last time I saw it, I'm like, I genuinely believe these two guys that were in the same room as her had no idea that she was going to spout off like that.
Yeah, they should have planned ahead about the matter.
and then you got Adam Sessler, the seal.
That's a nice clap.
That was hilarious when Review Tech USA played that and he put the seal sound effects in.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, but the thing is, why I talk about G4 and E3, it's basically almost past. It's almost their their Timex watches in a digital age. They're past their prime, and unless they can adapt and have something that's worth going, E3's gonna be another casualty, just like G4 was.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I mean, yeah. So I don't know if they want to continue trying to make E3 great again. Go ahead, but how you gonna do it when like I said, Ubisoft, Sega, and Tencent were all confirmed for E3, and then they made the decision in late March, early April to pull out.
Oh yeah, because they can do it themselves. They can do their own showcase.
Yeah.
Microsoft is well doing that with the Xbox conference for how many years? So,
it's happened around the same time of when E3 was planned this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I mean, I think E3 is dead basically.
Unless if they got to put pre-recordings of it, like a segment of itself, they have like a 10-minute showcase or like a montage or some sort of like promo of itself with other games and companies involved. That's about it. Other than that, it's not meant for live streaming, really.
Yeah, basically, I mean, maybe E3 could survive in a virtual environment. That way people can watch it from the comfort of their homes. And then maybe E3 could, or whoever owns the rights to E3, the event name, can create a YouTube channel and put conference videos of those showcases or conferences up on their YouTube channel and make revenue from it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe make a Twitch channel when the conference is live, and maybe they could get Twitch revenue. But unless they do something like that, I just don't see E3 returning in its original form.
Oh yeah, definitely. It sucks that it took me years later to realize that E3 is not at the head honcho of game promos anymore. It's now the last of its kind,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next. Retro Atari game found after being lost for 40 years. Sonar is described as a toy version of Battleship. As efforts to preserve video game history continue, we will stumble upon things that once seemed lost to time. This includes gamings dating back to the Atari 2600 days, such as this 44-year-old title made by Atari back in the 70s. The game is called Sonar and was developed by programmer Brad Stewart during his time at Atari. According to Atari Protos, Sonar was one of two unreleased Atari 2600 games Stewart worked on alongside Morse Code Tutor. Stewart originally described Sonar as a toy version of Battleship, but it has some distinct differences from the original strategy game. As Atari Protos notes, Sonar has to design around the game, taking place on one screen rather than two divided boards like Battleship does. The original game has players settling down a series of ships on a grid, with your opponent guessing coordinates to launch an attack and strike them. To emulate this, Sonar hides the target ships and has players move freely around the screen and find them in real time. It's a clever workaround that made the most of the technology at hand. Up until recently, the game was thought lost because Stewart didn't have a copy and he wasn't sure what became of any remaining ROMs, but a prototype was recently found in the collection of Jim Snyder, who worked at Atari in the 1980s. I am sad I didn't get to speak with the owner, said a user on the Atari Age forums who claims to have obtained the prototype. He passed away shortly after I met his daughter. She told me they threw away a ton of floppies, and I told her to get me everything and anything Atari from his garage. I pretty much saved the stuff from the landfills of the Bay Area. The games were reportedly offered to a museum who apparently declined them. All that being said, Atari Proto says Sonar does seem to be missing some features and has some bugs, which is to be expected for an unfinished prototype. These hiccups include some flickering when using some features like the sonar scan. It only has one pre-programmed map. The game's code seems to indicate that a finished version would have had randomized boards, which would give it more replay value. But it looks like that wasn't implemented yet in the prototype before it was shelved. If you want to try Sonar yourself, the ROM has been posted to Atari Age for download. So, what do you think of this game, Sonar? How it sounds?
I never heard of it until tonight. Sonar. I've been having.
Well, you've heard of Battleship,
yeah,
right?
Decades. Yeah, definitely heard of Battleship. Definitely. But
Well,
Sonar,
it's kind of like that.
okay. Well, because Sonar, it never been broadcasted publicly for how many decades on end, so no one did know about this, and it's like a similar event with the where we found out that most of the games that were buried underground for decades on end, the Alien video game, what's it called, E.T.
E.T.
Yeah, and we didn't know about that until like 10 years ago. That was buried deep in a landfill. So,
Right.
but Sonar, of course, I guess it's like one of those times where it was like they were about to release it, but they only have a few copies at the time of it. And I have some Atari games on my system, the joystick system, but there's nothing like showing Sonar before. So it'd be nice to get my hands on an Atari game, and hopefully they'll port that to the new generation system, like either PS4, Xbox One. Hopefully, I hope.
Well, I don't. If they did, I think it would be so unrecognizable from the original game that it wouldn't even be anything close to what it originally was.
Right.
From the image I saw, it was like a big square, but there were like some openings, and like you could move your ships in there, and then I guess use the sonar equipment to see if there's other ships under there.
Mm-hmm.
And like they said, there might have been different randomized boards in the finished version before it was shelved.
Yeah.
Or that was the plan before the game was shelved. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to see what's in these people's garages. You never know. So, I mean, I think this is interesting. I don't think it would be worth it trying to remake it now for like Xbox One or Xbox Series and PS5.
Well, not remake it, but at least port them. Put them in HD.
I don't even think that, because you would have to update the graphics, and like I said, with the gameplay, when you update the graphics, the gameplay would probably seem subpar. Battleship can work like on a '90s computer, so Sonar could probably work on a '90s computer. So I'm just saying, definitely porting it would not be right unless it was like part of a collection. But you would need enough games you could put on that collection, and even then, PS2 was like the last console that had those kinds of collections.
Oh, they still have collections on the Xbox One, like Pac-Man, Atari's, Galaga. So it's they still make them, except for there's other games out there for Xbox One and PS4 where they'll put it for like the DX version or HD port, stuff like that. So other versions like that, but you get the original too. So I Miss Pac-Man. I did a gameplay clip on my Twitter account of Miss Pac-Man from 1980s and all, but they put it to Xbox One. So that's a good thing on there. And Microsoft put that to their systems, so they can plan out ahead of time in the next few years for them to put that on their systems. That'd be great. It would be a blessing in the sky for the average gamer out there who sees this. Like, oh my god, that's Sonar from what we hear from Jameson and Charles's podcast. Wow, something like that.
Yeah, that's true. Not to talk about games with gold again, but they also had the Sega Vintage Collection, where like you could get the Streets of Rage trilogy or the Monster World trilogy.
I got them. I got those too.
Yep, me too. So I guess they could do something like that. They would have to. I mean, they would have to put other games in that collection, and then they could probably release it like that.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, a game this game was never released, also. So
never was released. Wow.
Yeah, it was shelved before it got released.
Okay, so what they can do for the 50th anniversary of Atari, if there's such thing, that is, which is takes what, a couple of years. If Atari can hear us, they should have this a compilation game system or game for the Xbox, PS, for those systems, just to put them into this format, and it'll sell for about 30, 40, $50.
Yeah, they used to do that. They had the Atari flashbacks, which were Atari's. All the games were built in, different flashbacks at different games.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it was a plug-and-play system. You just plug the cords in, and boom, you could pick 1 or 20 games from your Atari flashback, depending on which version you had, because there were like 9 of them.
Right.
So maybe they can get back to maybe they can make a Flashback 10.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can put this game on there.
Oh yeah.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next. Capcom says rare Resident Evil 4 bug could stop your progress. The bug is in Chapter 12 as triggered by a set of specific circumstances. The Resident Evil 4 remake has a critical but highly specific bug that could stop players from continuing. In Chapter 12, when players receive a specific key item, Capcom asks players to not attack with a knife until the notification for successfully obtaining that item has appeared in the upper right corner. The item should then appear in the attaches cases, keys, items, and treasures. If it hasn't, players should reload their save file before Chapter 12. Capcom says it will push out a future update to fix the bug. The Resident Evil 4 remake has had a big launch for the series, with over 3 million copies sold in just the 2 days since launch. In comparison, the 2020 Resident Evil 2 remake sold 2 million units in 5 days. In April, the Resident Evil 4 remake will receive a free DLC called the Mercenaries mode. In this original Resident Evil 4, the Mercenaries mode tasks players with killing waves of enemies in a set amount of time. A data miner also uncovered info about a Separate Ways DLC for the RE4 remake. In the original Resident Evil 4, Separate Ways focused on Ada Wong. There's still even more new Resident Evil 4 remake content on the way. It's getting a VR mode that will be a free DLC on the PS5 for PSVR 2 owners. RE4 VR mode is in development right now. It does not have a release date yet. So what do you think of this bug that could stop your progress?
That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, there's even bugs in some games where it frees up your game, like that of Halo Master Chief Collection on the Xbox One. I'm not sure if you ever got this experience before, Triple J, but when you play Xbox One version of the Halo Master Chief Collection and play Halo 3 all the time, your game will freeze up and crashes not only the game, but also the console as well. And it's been like this since the 2019 update for the Halo Reach game. So anything's possible for these game companies to fuck up after a while. I don't know how it was like that, but
this, unlike other bugs, this one, I mean, you have to do you have to do a certain set of objectives. I think they said you have to attack with the knife after getting a specific item, until you get a notification that the item has been added in your treasures or whatever. So it's kind of like a bug that you can activate, but you wouldn't know that you were activating the bug if you just happen to want to have ammo and only had your knife to defend yourself.
Right.
Also, did you ever play? You played RE4 on Xbox One, the older version, right?
The original Resident Evil 4 game, right?
Yeah. It came out. I played the Xbox One version in New York. Did you play that one?
I have the PS2 version I played. That's all I can remember. I remember buying the Xbox One version for the Resident Evil 2 original game.
Okay, well, Resident Evil 4, the reason I ask is because the DLC, they said DLC story features is more about Ada Wong's, you play as her basically, it's more about her story.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mercenaries mode. I played that in Resident Evil 3. That was awesome. Did you ever play Did I don't even know if Resident Evil 4 on PS2 had a Mercenaries mode once you beat the game.
They did.
They did?
Yep.
Okay. What did you think of Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 4 on PS2?
It has its moments where it's all right to play, but after a while, it has the downside to it though is very repetitive. After a while, so there's nothing really new, exciting that you open up as you play the game over time. Maybe you get new characters, whatever, over time, but that's about it. So, to my awareness,
okay.
It is.
Yeah. So I mean, unfortunately, the virtual reality thing, it's not out yet. We don't know when it's coming out. That's for PlayStation. But again, if you don't have a big gaming budget, you probably don't have the VR headset anyway. So, yeah, I remember I played the Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 3. That was fun. I never really got far though.
Right.
Just for anyone who's wondering, Resident Evil 3, the Mercenaries mode, who never played it, you start off at the train, and you have to play as Carlos, Mikhail, or Nikolai, and you had to make it from the train to the safe room in the warehouse. And you had to make it in a certain amount of time because there was a bomb in your body. But you could, there were people you could save along the way, and if you save those people, you would get extra time. You would also get extra time for killing enemies. Because in Resident Evil 3, there were two Nemesis characters. Where, like, if you came back, do you remember Resident Evil 3 well?
Not so much. I did play Code Veronica's Mercenaries mode.
I didn't even know that had a Mercenaries mode.
Yeah, you play as Claire, Steve, Chris. I'm not sure who's the other character. Most likely Wesker. And but that's how you have to unlock that character, Wesker. But definitely Claire Redfield, and she wore this skimpy outfit, short skirts and all. It was pretty cool. Well, she was very sexy for that.
I do have Code Veronica on my Xbox One. Through Games with Gold. But I think I'd have to restart my game because like I have no health. I'm in danger, and like I'm at the part where like when you put like when you do this clock game to get like a password.
Yeah.
Like this enemy attacks after you put in the password, and like, and I have to like limp to the open door that you open once you put in the password, and yeah. So I think like if I play Code Veronica again, I'm gonna have to start from the beginning.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, because I don't even think there's like any herbs left near me. But yeah, so like anyway, I remember Resident Evil 3 Nemesis coming back from the alley. So you were in that area behind the bar. There'd be like you come out from this way and you're trying to go to the door over here. Problem: there's a Nemesis here and there's a Nemesis here, and this one is running to you as you come in. So, but they said there was a way to trick the Nemesis into killing each other, and that would get you like 500 extra seconds if you did it correctly.
Oh, wow. 500 seconds, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, so... yeah, so...
Like at least 10 minutes worth of time.
More like 8 minutes, but still.
Okay. Yeah.
8 minutes, 20 seconds, if I'm not mistaken.
So, nothing.
Yeah, it's more than you start out with. But anyway, that was Resident Evil 3. This is Resident Evil 4. Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, next. Oh boy, the U.S. government went after Activision over stingy esports salaries. What Democrat is wasting time and resources this time? The Department of Justice targeted Call of Duty and Overwatch League specifically. The Department of Justice has taken Activision Blizzard to court, alleging the publisher's esports leagues had been potentially underpaying their workers' players via an exploitative competitive balance tax. The tax, which was signed off years ago by both Activision and each team in their Call of Duty and Overwatch esports leagues, was designed to operate like the salary caps found in the NFL and NBA. The government says this specific deal, however, had the purpose and effect of limiting competition between the teams in each league for esports players and suppressed esports players' wages, says in court filing on April 3rd. From the inception of each league, Activision and the teams agreed to impose rules that had the purpose and effect of substantially lessening competition for players by suppressing player compensation. Under these rules, which Activision called the competitive balance tax, teams were fined if their total player compensation exceeded a threshold set by Activision each year. For every dollar a team spent over that threshold, Activision would fine the team $1 and distribute the collected sum pro rata to all non-offending teams in the league. For example, if Activision set a competitive balance tax threshold of $4 million, a team that spent $1.2 million. Oh no! If they set a threshold of $1 million, a team that spent $1.2 million on player compensation in a season would pay a $200,000 fine, which would be distributed to the other teams. Teams recognized that their spending on player compensation would have been higher absent the competitive balance tax. The tax minimized the risk that one team would substantially outbid another for a player. The tax not only harmed the highest paid players, but also depressed wages for all players on a team. For example, if a team wanted to pay a large salary to one player, the team would have to pay less to the other players on the team to avoid the tax. Teams also understood that the tax incentivized their competitors to limit player compensation in the same way, further exacerbating the tax's anti-competitive effects. Sports fans might be thinking, hey, that's almost exactly how the NBA's salary cap and luxury tax work. And it is. But as the Department of Justice point out, the NBA's deal was hashed out in negotiations with the players' union as part of collecting bargaining agreements. This tax was not. The government says that an investigation into competitive balance tax has been going on for years, and that in 2021, having been warned it was potentially illegal, Activision issued memoranda to all teams in the Overwatch and Call of Duty leagues announcing that it would no longer implement or enforce a competitive balance tax in either league. Reuters reports that the case has today, on April 3rd, led to a settlement agreed to by both parties, but yet to be formally approved by a federal judge, hence the continued filing, with Activision saying the tax was never levied and the leagues voluntarily dropped it from our rules in 2021. We have always believed and still believe that the competitive balance tax was lawful and did not have an inverse impact on players' salaries. Again, my response to this is, look what the government thinks is the most important issue to spend time on. What do you think about this?
So that's the last shot, whatever it can, act like a baby. That's their motto, is to be like, well, we'll screw you over, but you don't screw with us, Otherwise we'll cry like babies,
Yeah, but seriously, this is what they're wasting their time on. Really, Call of Duty and Overwatch salaries for professional players. This is what you're spending your time on. Why don't I think Democrats are also behind this?
I think Sony has one of those beneficial programs, beneficial insights into these esports, events. So it's like, they're trying to make sure that Microsoft doesn't really get their hands on that shit, somehow, some way, even through the Microsoft Activision deal or the Activision Blizzard deal of sorts. So.
Well, this is Activision Blizzard on its own, but they're saying Activision Blizzard, they have the professional Call of Duty teams, professional Overwatch teams, but like I said, there's so many other things going on, but the government chooses to focus on bullshit like this. Get the country on the right direction, and then you can focus on bullshit like this.
Oh, yeah. While Sony themselves should focus on themselves too, because they're dying straight down with their sales revenue. That's what I hear for the last several years now. Whatever inventions or innovations they made over the last 10 years was not the best products we sold in the market. So they've been losing money since then. And the last thing they need to do is worry about some, government, entity just to help them out with the esports teams and shit like that, So.
Yeah, but putting a cap on esports players' salaries some people, some of these professional teams that win the big one, the team can make like $500,000, and then they divide it like among 5 players. Maybe the coach gets a cut. But I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't see why this is so important for the government to step in.
Yeah.
If a I mean, I don't know. I think it's just more bullshit.
Yep.
Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. Next, Pokemon Stadium joins Nintendo Switch Online this month. Pokemon Stadium, the classic 3D battle minigame collection for the Nintendo 64, just got a Nintendo Switch Online release date. While the game's imminent arrival to the online service was announced at Nintendo Direct in September 2022, today is the day we finally know when we can play it. Pokemon Stadium comes to Nintendo Switch Online Wednesday, April 12th. As is the case with all N64 games, you'll need the expansion pack in order to play it. While some fans may have hoped this port would include trading with Pokemon Home, they're unfortunately out of luck. The fine print in the trailer specifies that Pokemon cannot be transferred to this game. That said, there's also a notable improvement. 4-player online multiplayer will be available, so you can play Clefairy Says or Sushi Go Round with friends all over. Nintendo Switch's online expansion pack had a slow start, but its library has gradually snowballed into a much more significant package. In February, the service added a Game Boy Advance library, which included fan favorites like The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap, and Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. A month later, Metroid Fusion joined the lineup. Meanwhile, the base tier of NSO got an update last month that added another smaller handful of titles. They have a complete list of all games on the service. Were you ever a fan of Pokemon Stadium?
I never owned a copy of these Stadium games, but I did own games like Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Snap. I still have the game to this day, Pokemon Snap. Unfortunately, I didn't get the first Pokemon Stadium game. Unfortunately, is this the newest one for Nintendo Switch, or is it a port from the
It's the N64 port being ported to Nintendo Switch Online. So if you pay for the Nintendo Switch Online, you and you pay for the more expensive tier, get access to N64 games. Nice. And that's where Pokemon Stadium is, is from.
Interesting. All right.
Yes. So, I mean, if you're a fan of Pokemon Stadium, maybe this will get you to join the Nintendo Switch Online and pay for the more expensive tier, since you need the more expensive tier if you want to play the N64 games they offer.
Oh yeah. Or we'll just spend $100, for an original copy for Nintendo 64.
Actually, since you brought that up, let's see how much the Pokemon Stadium for Nintendo 64 is. Pokemon Stadium on price charting. Let's see, Nintendo 64. Wow, to get a loose cart, it's $32.
That's not bad.
Complete. The complete Nintendo 64 Pokemon Stadium is $192.23. Or is that $182.23? I think that's an 8. So $182.23 to get a brand new, never before opened Pokemon Stadium on Nintendo 64. It's $1,012.50.
Jesus Christ! $1,000 for a brand new man.
Yeah, Dr. Games on. You care about getting games brand new. You got $1,000 to spend on Pokemon Stadium?
I'm not a rich motherfucker yet, but I'll try to.
I wouldn't open it if you did have the money to spend it. That game better stay closed. It better stay sealed.
Yeah, I think especially to buy the $30 copy first. Then That's pretty cheap though. $30 for
Yeah,
Pokemon Stadium. And I
yeah.
Pokemon Go, so
We're not talking about like a budget title here. Pokemon, the biggest. These were like the big Pokemon games for the Nintendo 64.
oh yeah,
Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
I'm ready to move on.
All right. Next, Xbox Game Pass losing these 7 games soon. Say goodbye. As it does each month, Microsoft removes titles from the Xbox Game Pass library. The next wave of removals has now been announced, and there are 7 titles headed out on April 15th. Of note, Microsoft's own console exclusive Quantum Break is not among the list of titles set for removal, despite the game appearing in the Leaving Soon section of the Xbox Game Pass app. GameSpot is currently attempting to understand what is happening with Quantum Break. As for games that are confirmed to be leaving Game Pass soon, subscribers have until April 15th to play Life is Strange, True Colors, Moonglow Bay, Panzer Corps, and Rainbow Six Extraction. The Dungeon of Nuholbek, The Long Dark, and The Riftbreaker also leave Game Pass that day. As usual, Game Pass members save 20% on all games when buying them outright, so that's a silver lining for anyone who wants to keep playing any of these titles when they leave the catalog. In terms of new titles leaving on Game Pass, I'll talk about that later because that's in the next article I'm bringing up. So, again, the full list of games leaving on April 15th. Life is Strange, True Colors leaves console, cloud, and PC. So does Moonglow Bay. Panzer Corps 2 leaves PC. Rainbow, the next 4 games leave all 3 services, console, cloud, and PC. Rainbow Six Extraction, The Dungeon of Nuholbek, The Long Dark, and The Riftbreaker. Any of these games are you going to miss on Game Pass?
I always want to play Rainbow Six Extraction, but I keep forgetting about downloading it or finding ways to make safe spaces for my collection on my external hard drive. But now I got to do external hard drive, so I will try to download it tonight if I can. Try to play it tomorrow. But the Rainbow Six Extraction is mostly based on aliens and shit like that here. So I was like, why as well see what's so good about this game, if it ever is good. So, yeah.
Okay. As for me, I'm not going to miss any of these games. The only one I really cared about was Life is Strange, True Colors. I have to say that Life is Strange, Before the Storm, True Colors, I love the story in all 3. Life is Strange 2, I might have to actually try out one day.
True Colors, that's the prequel, right?
No. True Colors is True Colors didn't have anything to do. You play with Alex, a girl who's reuniting with her brother.
Okay.
Gonna be living with her brother. The only correlation between the first Life is Strange and Life is Strange True Colors, actually, it connects with the prequel. There's this girl that works at the record store named Stephanie in True Colors. She was a friend of Chloe's in Life is Strange Before the Storm. They went to the same school together.
Oh, okay.
And she was also a big fantasy fan of like of role playing and stuff like that.
Okay.
They did have a DLC for Stephanie's story in True Colors. I did, like I said, I researched it before I purchased it. I ended up not buying it because I heard it was very short. It was buggy, and the whole game, present day, takes place in the record store. The only times you don't play as Stephanie in the record store is when she's in a flashback. But yeah, basically, if you want to know more about Stephanie's story or what happened since she left the school that Chloe was in, you could play that. You could play the DLC of that. But like I said, Life is Strange, True Colors, the stories are just, of the 3 games I played, it's like once I get into the story, once the story really gets going, it's like I gotta see what happens next, and it hooks me till the end.
So that's not like the Life is Strange series is that good.
I can't speak for Life is Strange 2. but the rest of the Life is Strange games, the stories are great.
I did play the first hour of Life is Strange. It was all right. I'm proud of myself. I'm not into all that girl drama stuff, but it's okay to watch every now and then. So I'll try to push my way to the remaster version you gave to me for my birthday last year, I think it was. And,
No, I think it was Christmas.
Oh, Christmas, right? Christmas. Yeah, I thank you for that, Triple J, and try to make sure I play that sometime this year, hopefully. You know?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. To anyone who hears this, if like I said, take Life is Strange 2 out of this because I never played it, so I'm not gonna vouch for that game.
Right.
But Life is Strange Before the Storm, Life is Strange, and Life is Strange True Colors, the stories in those games are written really well. And usually by the time like once the story starts getting going, I admit it's slow in the beginning because you're just starting to get to know the characters and everything. But once the story starts going and picks up a little bit, you're like, I was like, I gotta find out what happens at the end. I gotta find out what happens next.
Yeah.
And you can even have a girl relationship in Life is Strange True Colors.
Okay. HLA.
Well, let me explain. let me explain that one. Alex, you play. She's like a 16, 17-year-old girl.
Oh, never mind.
She might be 18. She's not in school anymore, so
okay.
She might be of. But the thing is, anyway, she becomes really close with Stephanie, who works at the record store, and a friend of her brother's. And basically, there's this festival or dance, and you playing as Alex get to decide. It's like hand a flower to the person that you want to be with, and since the player is controlling Alex, you could decide: do you want to be with Stephanie or do you want to be with your brother's friend who worked with him? And obviously, since I was playing, I picked Stephanie. So. But if you're expecting to see anything that you shouldn't, no.
Okay, never mind.
Dr. Games 101 just lost all interest. Ready to move on?
Yes, unfortunately.
All right. First wave of Xbox Game Pass April 2003 titles announced. April has Tokyo, Ghostbusting, Tower Defense, and Minecraft Strategy to look forward to. The first wave of games for Xbox Game Pass in April has been officially announced, and if you're in the mood for seeing the spookier side of Tokyo, Tower Defense, and complicated roguelike action, then there's a lot to look forward to. Loop Hero is now available on console and PC, a retro endless RPG that mixes deck building with roguelike elements. Loop Hero is a tough but fascinating game as you battle to take down the dreaded Lich that has plunged the world into an endless loop of darkness. On April 6th, Iron Brigade will roll onto Xbox consoles and cloud devices. As a member of the Mobile Trench Brigade, you'll need to take on the forces of the Monovision Menace. Developed by Tim Schafer's Double Fine studio, you'll be able to wield a combination of mobile firepower and stationary defenses to help you win battles. After spending a year on a PlayStation 5 console as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive, Ghostwire Tokyo arrives on Xbox Series, X and S, PC, and Cloud on April 12th. Set in the Shibuya district of Tokyo, you'll be wielding spells and talismans in your quest to reclaim your body and stop a supernatural menace from unleashing an afterlife of dangerous phantoms upon the world. As an added bonus, this version of Ghostwire Tokyo includes the new Spider's Thread update. Okay, I thought Ghostwire Tokyo was like a racing game. Later on April 13th, you can hit the ice with NHL 23. Available on Xbox consoles for Game Pass Ultimate subscribers, NHL 23 includes all the usual ice hockey action, new tweaks for the sporting action, and the addition of women's players in Ultimate Team. A free 10-hour trial of EA Sports PGA Tour is also available to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members in case you'd prefer to hit the golf course instead of a burly ice hockey player's face. Lastly, Minecraft Dungeons launches on April 18th for console, PC, and cloud as a new spin-off set in the popular world developed by Mojang. An action strategy game, Minecraft Legends, has lush biomes to explore, alliances to forge, and friends to make as you turn back the Piglin tide in big battles. So, as usual, we talked about the games leaving Game Pass. Do any of these games coming to Game Pass interest you?
Ghostwire sounds interesting to play.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer of it many weeks ago, and basically it's like a Chinese superstition game of sorts.
Yeah, spells and talismans, so, yeah.
Kind of like playing Fear Effect, but this time, instead of Fear Effect being like a stick figure graphics, now it's a literally free-flow fighting system graphics. It's not bad. Looks good on my part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one I'd be most interested in trying now. The other ones, I mean, there was a loop game. Maybe it's at the beginning of the article. Loop Hero, RPG deck building with roguelike. On second thought, not so much. Yeah, so I mean, as far as this list goes, I think Ghostwire Tokyo would be the game I'd be the most interested in playing.
Oh yeah.
Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
Yeah, ready to move on.
All right. Next. Quantum Break temporarily removed from Xbox Game Pass, but it's coming back. Remedy Xbox's exclusive Quantum Break is leaving Game Pass, but only temporarily. Before Remedy arrived back on the scene with the supernatural thriller Control, the studio teamed up with Microsoft to release an ambitious TV game crossover titled Quantum Break in 2016. The game is being removed from Game Pass temporarily to address a licensing issue, and it will return at some point. Xbox boss Aaron Greenberg confirmed this after Quantum Break was listed as leaving soon alongside other titles on the Game Pass app. Remedy itself commented on the issue, saying the temporary removal was due to some licenses that expired that were in the process of being renewed. Xbox published a blog post today that listed the game leaving Game Pass on April 15th, and Quantum Break was not mentioned. Every other game shown in the leaving Game Pass page earlier this week is confirmed to be leaving the service, including the Riftbreaker, Moonglow Bay, Rainbow Six Extraction, The Dungeon of New Hubeck, The Amulet of Chaos, Life is Strange True Colors, and The Long Dark. That same blog post listed Iron Brigade, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Minecraft Legends as upcoming additions to Game Pass, among others. German language outlet Xbox Dynasty reported that Microsoft told the outlet that the removal is due to licensing issues, but it's unclear what the nature of those issues are. It's worth noting that Quantum Break would not be the first Xbox exclusive to be removed from Game Pass, as several previous Forza titles have been pulled due to music licensing deals expiring. So, what do you think of Quantum Break leaving Game Pass, albeit temporarily?
Well, I will admit this: after all these years of owning Quantum Break of its physical copy for about less than $10 back in 2018, 2019. I only played the first 2, maybe 3 hours of the game, and it's all right in my perspective. I'm kind of stuck in the part where I have to go up against these guys with like these time stop events that they have built within their bodies. So I have to do a combination of moves in order to kill them. So it's typical, straight out shooting warfare. So it's a little challenging after a while as you progress through the game. But it's more like a story in a sense of its own. It's like watching a movie in a sense, especially if you download the live action sequences. So this is what I hear about live action. So if you download both Quantum Break game and the Quantum Break live action series, it'll build into the game itself after every level you play, and it will show an action sequence in the process of it. Show you different stories and moves and a little bit more about the game itself. It kind of was interesting. Some of it was kind of stupid and trivial, like showing like a cup being put onto a cupboard or those cut mats, stuff like that, like you see in the video right here, like something like this, you know. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's like okay, whatever. But then when the action picks up, I was like, oh wow, it's not bad. It's like watching those Street Fighter movies or Lethal Weapon movies, stuff like that. You know, that kind of shit. That's like about some Quantum Break, you know.
I think I played Quantum Break. Didn't you make choices in that game that dictated where the story went?
Not necessarily like that, in my perspective. You did shit. You depends on how well you play the game, though, determines how well where the story progresses. Yes, but it's usually linear gameplay. That's all it is.
Yeah, but I think every chapter had like a had a decision that you had to make.
What?
And I might be thinking of something else also.
Okay.
I could have sworn like Quantum Break was like a 5-episode game, and every episode had like a decision at the end that you had to make that dictated where the story went.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I saw something like that in the first level of the game.
Okay.
So it's like you decide between like cover up the story from the public, and then you'll face backlash for it as the entity that you want to work for, or you expose the woman or expose the operations of that radical group, whatever. Well, I don't know. I wasn't like keeping track of it at all, but I decided to go with the safe approach to cover it up. So
okay.
So there's more to the story as I play more of it. So give me more time, guys. And I'll see more about it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I didn't even finish it. I think I got stuck like in episode 4. But yeah. So anyway, if you like Quantum Break and you were playing it on Game Pass, they have to remove it temporarily for licensing issues.
And I'm sure if you cannot wait too long for the licensing issues to reinvigorate into the Game Pass, just buy it for about $10 on Amazon. If it's still there for $10, that is. That's how much I got it for.
So, ready to move on?
Yep, we're ready.
All right. Still got a few more. Let's see. You've still got
Maybe 2 or 3.
more like 5
Okay.
stories. One of gaming's biggest acquisitions ever just happened. The 6th largest gaming acquisition in history was announced on Wednesday, with Savvy paying $4.9 billion for Scopely. Savvy Games, a division of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, has acquired game studio Scopely in one of the biggest acquisitions by purchase price in the history of video games. Savvy Games is paying $4.9 billion to acquire Scopely. There are only 5 gaming buyouts that are bigger, including Activision buying King for $5.9 billion, Microsoft buying ZeniMax for $8.1 billion, Tencent buying Supercell for $8.6 billion, and Take-Two buying Zynga for $12.7 billion. Microsoft is in the process of buying Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion, which would be far and away the biggest acquisition in the history of video games. In a press release, Savvy said the deal, which is pending regulatory approval, strengthens the company's ability to deliver new and exciting products for the global gaming community. You might not know Scopely by name, but the company has worked on games in juggernaut franchises like Star Trek, The Walking Dead, and Marvel. It's also behind the game Stumble Guys, a colorful battle royale game that is seemingly inspired by Mediatonic's Fall Guys. Savvy Games CEO Brian Ward, a former Activision Blizzard executive, said his company looks forward to helping Scopely accelerate its ambitions. According to Savvy, Scopely will operate independently under the banner of Savvy and will look to extend its businesses to PC and console, in addition to continuing operation in the mobile space. Scopely's co-CEO, Walter Driver, and Javier Ferreira will continue to lead the company. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has been making big-time investments in the gaming space through Savvy for some time already. In addition to buying Scopely outright, Savvy holds minority ownership positions in Capcom, Nexon, EA, and Take-Two. Savvy also owns 40 million shares of Activision Blizzard, as in line for a huge payday if Microsoft's deal to buy Activision Blizzard goes through. What's more, Saudi Arabia owns more than 8% of Nintendo and is the Mario company's largest outside investor. After Savvy gave gaming giant Embrace $1 billion, the Borderlands studio owner defended the deal to take the money after people raised concerns about Saudi Arabia's human rights record. In 2018, U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who criticized Saudi Arabia's government, entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul and never left. The CIA later concluded that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered Khashoggi to be killed. The PIF, who is run by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, is looking to grow the size of its portfolio to more than $1.07 trillion by the end of 2025, according to Markets Insider. The oil-rich kingdom is trying to create a new image for itself and claims of its addiction to oil. Diversifying its portfolio for the wealth fund by way of gaming investments, the backing of the LIV golf tournament series, and other efforts is seemingly a step toward that. So what do you think of this acquisition?
$4.9 billion is not something to sneeze at, that's for certain. That's a lot of money to spare to sell, to buy the company. Of course, yes, Activision Blizzard was the biggest one at $70 billion, but even a company like Zavi, I didn't know that the company before Zavi, that's not to really just to give up so easily. So there was something for the long term for this money. So hopefully it'll be well worth it in the long term for them. So.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish they had. I'm not familiar with this company. I wish they had mentioned some. They mentioned some franchises, but I wish that they had mentioned some of the. I wish they had mentioned some of the games that the studio was responsible for.
Yeah.
So I really don't have too much to comment on. But I do know Saudi Arabia for the last at least 5 years has been spending a lot of money on entertainment and trying to get basically trying to bring entertainment to their country.
Mm-hmm. Especially with they have so much oil to spare on that they can just buy up anything and everything in that country and turn that desert wasteland into something very profitable, like in Dubai and Saudi Arabia and stuff. So it's hey, more power to them over the last several decades. Yeah.
So I mean, just anyone that does business with Saudi Arabia gets criticized because the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia did order U.S. journalists to be killed. Mm-hmm. So,
and also the fact that for God knows how many years now they've been having, well, not that years, but also actually decades so far, they have rights to Fox News Network. So the ones that the Fox News Network they have at least 20% in the share of Fox News. So it's they have their hands not only in gaming but also in news as well. So I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. So
yeah, they have WWE events twice a year in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah.
Because WWE, they paid WWE a lot of money. So, yeah. So I mean, but like I said, without knowing what this studio has worked on, it's really hard to comment about this. Mm-hmm. Like Take-Two, okay, and Rockstar. That's Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption. But like I said, I'm liking. I don't know Scopely. I don't know anything that this company has created off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Just a few more stories. I think 3 or 4. Anyway, Resident Evil 4's free Mercenaries DLC is available now. The thrilling fan favorite mode is back. Resident Evil 4, the Mercenaries DLC, is available for free across all platforms now. The DLC introduces the fan favorite Mercenaries mode, which leans into fast-paced arcade action across the game's many stages. The content is available to anyone who owns the base version of the Resident Evil 4 remake. In Mercenaries mode, your job is to build a combo to earn the highest score possible. As you play, the timer counts down, but racking up kills and keeping your combo going adds to the clock. Mercenaries lets you play as many of the game's most beloved characters, including Leon, Lewis, Krauser, and Hunk. It's possible more characters will be added later on. The mode sends you into stages across the village, castle, and island, allowing you to relive certain moments from the base game. Can you earn the max rank on all stages? Mercenaries was also available in the original version of Resident Evil 4, but has been expanded upon greatly in the 2023 remake. There was also a version of Mercenaries in Resident Evil Village, which featured a slew of playable characters and stages from the main game. Capcom launched the Mercenaries DLC alongside the announcement that Resident Evil 4 had surpassed 4 million copies sold. Not only has the game performed well commercially, but critically as well. So, how do you feel about this?
Hey, it's not bad. I played Resident Evil 4 Mercenaries on the PS2 version. I played Mercenaries on the Resident Evil 5 game, as well as especially on Resident Evil 6. It improves over time, of course, with their Mercenaries mode and all. With the Xbox One version of Resident Evil 5 Mercenaries, I think they had all the DLC added to the Xbox One version, so that's more power to them. So yeah, I think I spent like not even $15 on Resident Evil 5 on sale. And it comes with all the DLC and stuff. So if they deal with Resident Evil 4, so be it. Especially with the remake version as well too. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, for anyone who bought Resident Evil 4, the new one, even if you just bought the base game, the Mercenaries mode is now available and free.
Oh yeah.
So, you said you played Mercenaries mode on the PS version, right?
That's correct, yes. If I remember correctly, that it's been so many years ago.
Okay. And anything else to say about this, or?
Not really, no.
Okay, so ready to move on?
Yeah, ready.
All right. Next. This next story might be funny. Sony lashes out at government for not shutting down Microsoft Activision deal. The PlayStation maker calls UK regulators' reversal irrational. While not set in stone, the UK's Competitive and Markets Authority, CMA, now appears likely to approve Microsoft's $69 billion purchase of Activision Blizzard, and Sony seems pissed. In its latest regulatory filing, it blasted UK regulators over their surprising, unprecedented, and irrational reversal after initially pushing back against the mega acquisition. CMA approval is one of the last major obstacles facing the unprecedented deal to merge Xbox and Call of Duty, and Sony hasn't been letting that happen quietly. The PS5's manufacturer's latest tantrum happened on Thursday via Tom Warren at The Verge, with the new filing that criticizes UK regulators for essentially accepting Microsoft's math when it came to forecasting how many users Sony might lose if Call of Duty became an Xbox exclusive. They're still sucking on that, even though Microsoft said they weren't going to do it. In February, the CMA provisionally concluded that Microsoft would have a financial incentive to pull Call of Duty from PlayStation consoles, and suggested that the tech giant would have to leave the entire franchise out of the merger to get it approved. A month later, the CMA changed its tune, and after receiving more data and input from Microsoft, announced a new provisional finding that basically said the opposite. With the CMA set to issue its final decision before the end of April, Sony has responded with a detailed list of all the ways it thinks the regulators messed up. At the very risk of getting very deep in the weeds for a moment, the controversy centers around how the impact of big blockbuster exclusives is measured. Microsoft claims that any players who switch to Xbox to play Call of Duty would not make up for the total loss of all Call of Duty spending on PlayStation, thus incentivizing it to keep the series on Sony's console, in addition to promises it won't make the series exclusive anyway. Sony argues that the players who switch consoles to keep Call of Duty are precisely the die-hard fans who spend the most money on new releases and in-game microtransactions, suggesting that Microsoft might eventually pull the colossal franchise exclusively into its own console ecosystem after all, which they can't do with 10-year deals in place. The CMA's reversal of its position on its consoles theory of harm is surprising, unprecedented, and irrational, Sony wrote. It continued. The provisional findings accepts a significant body of evidence in the round to support its finding that Microsoft would have the ability and incentive to withhold Activision content and that this would substantially lessen competition by foreclosing PlayStation. In assessing this body of evidence, the PFs emphasized consistent with jurisprudence on the CMA's duty to assess evidence 1. That it is particularly important in this case to assess the merged entity's incentive to foreclose by considering all the available evidence in the round, rather than to focus on a single model. A PS5 maker also argued that the CMA discounts Microsoft's incentive to forego PlayStation players in order to boost the value of its rival subscription library Game Pass, and that even said subtle differences in the quality of the game on different platforms can have a huge impact, citing tech comparisons like those by Digital Foundry. It is difficult to conceive of an industry where consumers are more attuned to quality and where quality affects purchasing decisions, Sony wrote. Call of Duty games are passionate, knowledgeable, and sophisticated. Sony has gotten a lot of criticism over proposing this deal over concerns about exclusives, considering its own history of paying for them, including a recent deal with Square Enix to make this summer's Final Fantasy XVI a PS5 console exclusive. But it's at least been consistent in its logic. It thinks exclusives matter a lot, which is why it pays for them, why it's so terrified of its rival doing the same. Microsoft originally planned for the deal to close by the end of June, though it's also still waiting approval from the European Union and facing an antitrust lawsuit by the Federal Trade Commission. It's also unclear how the deal will affect some of 2023's biggest releases, like a reportedly new standalone Call of Duty Modern Warfare game and Diablo 4. I just have one thing to say about Sony. It basically sounds like sour grapes. Like, they thought that the CMA was going to hold it up, and they were upset that that's not happening anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, Sony likes. We still talking about this earlier tonight. Sony themselves just like to be like babies at times, to throw tantrums at stuff like this, especially with this acquisition deal. It's the point where they don't know when to stop, just to relax, understand that they're going to be out of competition for a while, for after 10 years, and that's it. And so it's game over for them after that. That's my perspective, of course. And because they care more about albeit a competition in illegal, underhanded ways, than to just focus on themselves to improve for next product or for next line of products. So that's their problem, Sony.
Yeah. So basically, this is Sony.
Is that baby crying?
Yeah.
Away.
Yeah, it's just, Sony keeps hanging on to that what if that Microsoft legally can't do, with deals with Nintendo in place, with deals in and I think Nvidia in place. They got that gaming studio or gaming subscription service in Ukraine that all have 10-year Call of Duty contracts. They can't make the game exclusive. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft's been like, Sony, come to the table. And Sony's been like, get away from us.
No. I refuse. You're a big bully, Microsoft.
Yeah, so, again, that was just Sony throwing a tantrum. Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, just a couple more stories left. Resident Evil 4 Remake sales top 4 million units, second fastest selling Resident Evil, up from 3 million last month. Resident Evil 4 Remake has now sold over 4 million copies worldwide, Capcom announced today. This comes after Capcom previously revealed last month that the game sold over 3 million copies within its first 2 days of release. In addition to Resident Evil 4 garnering interest and attention from the release of the Chainsaw demo prior to launch, sales of the title grew steadily following a highly positive reception from customers, driving worldwide sales over 4 million units, Capcom said in a statement. According Alex Anil, writer of Itchy Tasty, an unofficial history of Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4 Remake is the second fastest selling Resident Evil in history. He expects it to overtake Resident Evil 6, which didn't hit 5 million units sold until nearly a year after launch. Capcom's statement continued. Capcom will continue to focus on growing sales of the title, including with the release of the Mercenaries, which came out yesterday. The Mercenaries mode has players fight infected enemies in a wave-based assault fashion. These challenges are time-based ones, and so players will need to defeat as many enemies as they can before the clock runs out. The mode released on April 7th includes Leon, Lewis, Krauser, and Hunk. Resident Evil 4 is available on PC, PS4, PS5, and Xbox Series. It was already available in some areas yesterday, with some fans quickly identifying what seemed like pay-to-win microtransactions. In IGN's Resident Evil 4 Remake review, we said the Resident Evil 4 Remake is the series' most relentlessly exciting adventure rebuilt, refined, and realized to the full extent of its enormous potential. So, what do you think of Resident Evil 4 Remake sales hitting 4 million units?
That's a lot right there for any game to begin with. Resident Evil 4 Remake has been in anticipation for at least, 10 years? It feels like 10 years, because obviously there are projects made for remakes by various people on the internet to remake Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2 and stuff like that. So it's been in the making for at least, to my awareness, 5 years now. So more power to Capcom and then other platforms, especially on the PS5. That really helps out the sales. So it's a blessing for them. I wish I had kind of cash on me to sell 4 million copies and make billions of dollars after that. Something like that.
And they said, to put this in comparison, Resident Evil 6 took nearly a year to get this far.
Yeah.
So, it kind of makes me wonder, though. We had Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. We had Resident Evil 8 Village. I wonder what's making them go back to the older Resident Evils.
For nostalgia purposes, for older fans like myself.
Okay.
Because I want to play Resident Evil 4 Remake very soon on my own accord, but I don't have the money and the system for it. So. Yeah,
you need a. That's the thing. It's on PS4, PS5, and Xbox Series, but it's not on original Xbox One. Meaning, except for Xbox One X, I've seen copies on at least being promoted on GameStop but you need an Xbox One X specifically. I just don't understand. Like, if it's on, it should be on. This is why it would help if it was on Game Pass, because at least if you didn't have the system, you could still play it via the cloud.
Oh yeah.
We wouldn't be able to broadcast it or record it, but at least we'd be able to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think if it's on PS4, why can't it be on the base Xbox One?
Probably because of specs problems. The specifications for these systems, Xbox was outdated. It always was outdated when it was released back then years ago. So PS4. But wasn't that the same with the PS4? Not necessarily. PS4 was well up to date with its specs.
Okay.
Xbox One, it wasn't going to play Watch Dogs 1 very well. After the E3 event showing like high-tech PC port graphics, so it's kind of like
really,
yeah. So
because I got an Xbox One in like I said, for Christmas 2015. I got Watch Dogs the game, yeah.
Well, if the graphics were different from a PC though.
Oh, okay.
Xbox One was
I'm just saying,
it was so dated at the time that it just didn't have the proper graphic upgrade to play high performance games like that. Watch Dogs, especially Watch Dogs. So.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I did play Watch Dogs all the way through, and I didn't notice any. I didn't notice any performance issues.
Well, it didn't have that 4K 1080p or stuff like that. You have the only you can do at most is have a 1080p 30 frames per second. Not 4K 60 or 120 frames per second, like that are newer systems. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Anything else to add, or ready to move on?
I'm ready for the next last two topics.
Well, last one coming up.
Okay.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection sells 1 million copies. Cowabunga. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection, has sold more than 1 million copies, Konami announced today, an impressive feat in light of it being a retro collection comprised of older games from the 8 and 16-bit era. Konami revealed the news in a cheeky infographic that revealed that 6 million pizzas were eaten and 350 million foot soldiers defeated. We're thrilled and a little shell-shocked at this morning's fantastic news, Digital Clip said in a tweet. Thank you to Konami and Nickelodeon for the opportunity to make Cowabunga collection. But most of all, thank you, the intensely loyal TMNT fans who loudly supported this project. The Cowabunga collection's strong sales can be chalked up to the considerable excitement in the run-up to its release last year, which was owed in large part to the lack of availability for many of its core games. The collection consists of 13 games from the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and arcade, with many of them featuring online play. Our review was positive on the collection as a whole, but criticized its online play. The entire TMNT, the Cowabunga collection, has clearly been crafted by a team that loves the TMNT, not just the games, but the shows and comics as well. However, it's truly unfortunate that the online component makes it so hard to find a match, and when you do get into a game, it's often woefully laggy. The input delay could also be improved. Digital Clips has since added new features and other enhancements while fixing numerous issues, including multiple enhancements for online play. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection, is currently available on Switch, PS4, PS5, PC, and Xbox. So what do you think of the Cowabunga collection getting past that 1 million sold mark?
I mean, that's a good feat right there because usually most Super Nintendo games that are a compilation, or any NES games or any old school games put in a compilation, they don't really make that many sales. Only for like few people for nostalgia purposes, like I said, for Resident Evil 4, remake and stuff like that. So usually most like ported, remake, remastered games from like 10 plus, 20 plus years ago, like Final Fantasy 13-2, games like what's that called, Resident Evil 4 remake and all. They only make so much copies for the remakes and the reports and stuff like that. But this time around, the gaming audience, the gamers are larger than ever in numbers, that is. So that's one reason why this specific game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, had so much potential to sell with great amount of copies like they did now with 1 million. So more power to the Capcom and other companies that put these remakes into play, or remasters at least now.
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't had a chance. Maybe with the money I have got for my birthday, I can at least get the Cowabunga collection. Yeah. So basically, I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'm looking forward to it, especially since I love the Game Boy games. Well, I love the first Game Boy game, and the other two I never got a chance to try. And they're kind of expensive if you go after them individually.
Oh yeah. Very expensive.
Yeah. And then that's the same with Nintendo games. Turtles in Time, you're not getting that for like under $50 or $60.
Unless you want to emulate it.
Yeah, unless you emulate it, which my computer, the emulators don't recognize my PlayStation controller or my N64 controller with the USB plug, so that's not that's not an option anymore.
Yeah, I play keyboard and mouse for the old stuff like the SNXX emulators from 1990s and 2000s. Yeah. So that's how I got able to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 back at the time, was the 9X emulator, it's called, back then. So
I've dealt with SNES emulators, but I can't do the keyboard thing anymore.
Oh yeah. Still there, Triple J? Hello? Hello, Triple J. Hello. Hey, Triple J, you there? Hello. Having some technical difficulties, guys. Hold on. Triple J. Hello. Alright, Triple J, can you hear me loud and clear?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, I don't know what happened there, so
Yeah, we got disconnected for a second, guys. Sorry about that.
yeah. Just let me enlarge the video for OBS. All right, so yeah, as I was saying, the Cowabunga collection, it's maybe something I'll be able to try now because the individual games themselves are expensive, and emulators for me is not an option since what I used to get to make my computer recognize my controllers, that program doesn't work anymore.
Is it dated?
Yeah, just stopped being supported.
That's not good.
So like, but I used to just connect a controller, run that program, click what controller it was, and then the emulators would recognize it. Now that doesn't work since the program stopped being supported.
When did it stop being supported, you know?
It stopped being supported not too long ago. Basically, when I stopped playing emulators, that's the reason. So it was supported most recently. Like I think it stopped being supported like 2 years ago.
I see.
Anyway, so I might get the Cowabunga collection.
Definitely.
So yeah, yeah. So that's the end of the Let's Discuss Gaming podcast. I did forget to mention this was episode number 70. So I hope you enjoyed this. Our next podcast, let me pull up the calendar. Our next podcast will be on April 22nd, starting Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope you follow me there. Dr. Games 101, you got anything to share that you might be doing tomorrow online?
Right this second, I know I was supposed to say you guys want to do Resident Evil 2 gameplay sometime for the last couple of weeks. Sorry I didn't get a chance to do it yet. And so making sure that's going on in my life right now. I haven't been feeling so well lately. And also other projects I'm doing. I'm doing Zeely for the last several weeks, and I just signed up for a new membership, or exclusive membership to them. So now I gotta play more of the game to make up for that money, as well as for make somebody in the process of it all too, from winning tournaments, things like that matter. So if you want to join me, follow the links in my YouTube videos recently. You'll see the link. You'll click to the referral link, and you'll want to play with me. You message me on Xbox Live or on Zeely.com, or Zeely.gg, excuse me, it's called. So that's what I've been doing for the last few weeks. So hopefully I'll do Resident Evil 2 gameplay with you guys sometime next week, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, tomorrow I might be on Twitch. I've been off Twitch just mainly because the only game I could have streamed from my computer was Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Because my mom was in the hospital, I was in the living room. Unfortunate, but I didn't want to keep my aunt and uncle up because their bedroom is right next to the living room. So I didn't, want to get too loud and disturb anyone. I might. So I don't know if I'm going to return to that. I started playing today, Yakuza Like a Dragon. That's the review I'm going to be working on next. For my review section on jimmysdeals.com. Again, Jimmy's JIMMYS-deals.com. It's, if you're watching this on Twitch, it's one of the links in the About section of my profile. If you want to visit the website there. Yeah, but Yakuza Like a Dragon, it's a role-playing game, so it's, I'm going to have to play a lot longer than the few hours I would normally play a game before I review it. So I might stream it tomorrow, whether I leave off tonight, just to get some playtime in. But
Understood.
Yeah, so, you know, it depends, but, you know, at the same time, I don't want to do too many gaming streams of it, because, like, anything except Total Extreme Wrestling 2020, like, when you play the game the first time, you'll get, like, I'll get a number of viewers on Twitch, and then if I play that exact same game, just further, the next night on Twitch, my viewer count goes down again, so... But... like I said, so that's probably what I'll be doing at least tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also searching for a new job, so if my Twitch schedule does, I know I haven't been on Twitch since the last podcast, but I am searching for a job myself. I'm going to be hearing back from a job next weekend, so that could play a part into it. So it's just a lot of things up in the air. Got to take it day by day.
I have.
Anything else you want announce before we sign off for tonight?
That's about it for the time being.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. Good night, everyone.
Goodbye, salutes, and till next time. Bye.
Peace.